Hello everyone. Let's start our today's topic, that is, can we see everything? Are we able to interpret what actually the architectural monuments want to tell us? Or can we actually understand what is the point of view of the architect or the sculptor or the artist behind that piece of art? So, by now, you must have understood and had a glimpse of the rich visual traditions that have actually existed in the past. And those are actually expressed in the brick or the stone architecture, through sculpture, through various paintings, and through various sources about which we get to know from the historians or archaeologists' studies. Now, we have also seen that sculptures been destroyed and some of them have also lost over the centuries. So what has actually been remained has been preserved, and that preservation of that particular monument or some sources that actually convey the sense of the vision of different artists, different architects, sculptors, masons, those who have actually created these spectacular works. Do you always automatically understand what all these sculptures actually wanted to convey, or what is the point of view of the artist or the masons? Or can we ever know what these images actually meant to people who saw them or who actually venerated them around 2000 years ago? So it is very useful and helpful to recall that around 19th century the European scholars first actually saw some of the sculptures of gods and goddesses, and they could not understand what these were about. They could not understand the meaning behind building them. Sometimes even they were horrified by seeing them. These figures have multiple arms and heads, and they had combinations of humans and animal forms, so they were very much horrified by seeing these different types of figures. Now, the early scholars have actually tried to make a sense of what appeared to be very strange to them or strange images that they saw by comparing them with the sculptures with which they were familiar. So, what they used to do is they used to find something strange and they used to compare it with something that they have seen, something that they were familiar to. So, for example, that of the ancient Greece. Now, they often found out that early Indian sculptures were inferior to the works of Greek artists, and they were very excited when they discovered certain images of Buddha or Bodhisattvas. They were evidently based on Greek models. According to them, the work of Indian sculpture was inferior to that of the Greek models, and hence they were more often that not found in around northwest or in the cities such as Taxila, Peshawar, where Indo-Greek rulers had actually established their kingdoms in the 2nd century BCE. Now, these images were a closet to the Greek statues, and these scholars were familiar with. They were actually considered to be the best examples of early Indian art. So, whatever the images or the statues they have found out, the scholars were very familiar with them and they considered them the best works of Indian art. These scholars also they adopted a very important and a different strategy that we actually all frequently use. What was that? That was devising yardsticks derived from the familiar to make a sense of the unfamiliar. Whenever they saw something unfamiliar, they used to actually connect it with something familiar they knew about. And hence, in this manner, they used to interpret the meaning of that particular piece of art. Now consider a problem what they must have gone through. That was if a text and an image do not match, or they were not able to interpret the text or the image that they have found out, or they were not able to match it with something familiar they know. So we have seen actually certain art historians that have actually drawn upon certain textual traditions that to understand the meaning of these sculptures. Now, while this is very certainly a far more efficacious strategy than comparing Indian images with Greek statues, so it is not always easy to use. it is very difficult to actually get an unfamiliar statue or a sculpture and understand it with something familiar. And so you have to find out certain familiar or certain similar traits in that unfamiliar statue or that piece of art to get to know it. Now, one of the most intriguing examples of this was a famous sculpture along a huge surface rock in Mahabalipuram, that is in Tamil Nadu. So, if you closely see the figure 4.30 that I am attaching here, so look carefully that it shows a vivid depiction of a story. But which story it is? So the art historians actually, they have searched a lot through the Puranas to actually identify it about the, actually they wanted to identify about the story, and are very sharply divided in their opinions on this. So some of them feel that this actually depicts the descent of the river Ganga from the heaven. Now the natural cleft through the center of the rock surface might also represent the river. Now, the story itself is narrated in the Puranas and the epics as well. So, the others feel that it represents a story from the Mahabharata. That is when Arjuna actually was doing penance on the river bank in order to acquire the arms. And it also actually points out to the central figure of an ascetic. Now, finally, at the last of this chapter, you should remember that there are many rituals and there are various religious beliefs and practices that are not even recorded in the permanent or visible form. For example, as monuments or as sculptures or even as paintings. So, these also include certain daily practices as well as they are also associated with special occasions, but they are not recorded. So many of the communities or the peoples, they may not have felt the importance or the need to actually record all these or actually make records or kind of diary out of it, or record them as certain monuments or sculptures or in paintings. So even they may have had vibrant traditions or they may have certain important rituals that are still being performed in various parts of the world. So there were various vibrant traditions. They must have having vibrant traditions of religious activities or certain philosophical ideas are there. So in fact, the spectacular instances or the examples that we have seen, that we have focused on this in this chapter, are just the tip of the iceberg. That is, there are various more rituals and religious beliefs or practices that are being performed in the various parts of the world which may not have been recorded or about which we don't know. So children, that's all for today. Today we have finished off this chapter, that is thinkers, beliefs and buildings. So we'll come back again with the next video, with the next chapter. Till then, thank you so much.